Yeah, so it's like they're using documenting it's like
It's Mr. Dominguez! Hello and good evening. I said hello, good evening. What a beautiful crowd. What a beautiful theater. This is such a beautiful... So hello, my name is Larry Rosen. I'm here with a group of my colleagues and friends representing an organization called The Moth. Woo! Give it up for The Moth. So, by a show of applause or a round of hands, who has never heard of The Moth? Who's unfamiliar with The Moth? Great, because we get to tell you who we are. We'd love to do that. The Moth is a nonprofit organization devoted entirely to the sharing of personal stories. It's as simple as that. We believe that everyone has many stories to tell, and we believe that everyone benefits from telling them and from hearing the stories of others. And so with that mission in mind, we do storytelling shows for now hundreds and thousands of people in different places around the country and around the world. We have open mic story slams, which are competitions, really good-natured competitions, which people come and throw their names into a hat, and members of the audience score what was the best story for the evening. We have a radio show on public radio, which is heard in, I believe, close to 300 markets. At this point, we have a podcast downloaded over 15 million times a year. And we have the Moth Community Program, which I have the great pleasure and honor to manage. The Moth Community Program brings workshops and storytelling opportunities to all kinds of communities throughout New York City. Communities united by work, by common experience of all kinds. Now, until, as of, I would say, this past fall, these workshops in New York City had all been conducted in English. And I was approached, actually we were approached by Belen and by Marisa on behalf of Instituto Cervantes, who said, you know what, you really should do some things in Spanish. And we said, you're absolutely right. And so we united with Spain Culture New York, and we opened this up to people to say, would you like to take a Moth workshop and tell stories in both Spanish and English? And we ended up with 15 of the most wonderfully creative, bilingual, brilliant people. And so over the course of last week and this week, we've been presenting the stories that these folks have worked on in the course of this workshop. So before we even start, I would like you to give a hand to all the people that participated in this workshop. It has been fascinating for us, for some of us, to see that the differences and the wonderful things that are unique are not just the language. It's the whole spirit, it's the whole fire behind it. We keep talking about this, those of us that coached here. When we first started, I was telling my friends, I said, I hardly know them, and they signed their emails, un abrazo. I said, they're giving me hugs, we just met. I said, these are my kind of people. And it has been. They have been our kind of, we've formed a wonderful family over the course of the past couple of months. And so I think we should get started so you can hear some stories. I would like very much to introduce you to the person who will steer this particular ship for the course of the evening, our host. Please welcome Dawn Joelle Fraser.
Thank you, Larry. Everyone, you guys, Larry, for those of you who don't know, is quite the amazing individual. And one thing that he left out of his little story right now when he mentioned that we would be teaching this workshop for the first time is that his Spanish is, it's okay. It's just okay.
It's gotten better.
It's gotten a lot better. So when we decided that we were actually going to do this workshop, one of the first things he did was call up some people in the office, and he said to me, Dawn, do you speak Spanish by chance? I was like, yeah, poquito. So little by little, our Spanish has been getting greater and better, and I am so thrilled to be hosting the second night of Arts Speaks Spanish. Give it up for Arts Speaks Spanish. It is just so beautiful to see you guys here. I feel like I just ate like a whole bunch of batata fritas and just like I'm just like full belly, you know, like full audience. I'll be doing a little bit of Spanish and English for those of you who who are bilingual. Just by a round of applause, how many people here do understand some Spanish? Round of applause, round of applause, round of applause. And who here has no idea of any type of Spanish whatsoever? It's okay, you can. Great, awesome, beautiful. So for those of you, familiar faces, beautiful. For those of you who don't speak Spanish, we will actually be doing a little bit of translations. And as a little cheat sheet, just to give you a heads up, in your little folder, catalog, for tonight, pamphlet, there's actually information, a little bit of information about each storyteller, and a little bit of information about each story. So hopefully that will give you just a little bit of a teaser in addition to some of the information I'll be giving to you in between each set. Sound good? All right. So before we get started, I'd like to introduce to you the director of the Instituto Cervantes, Mr. Ignacio Olmos.
It's really amazing to see how many people are interested in this second event of Art Speak Spanish. I wanted to address some brief words to these 7 or 8 people who have expressed that they cannot understand any word of Spanish. Well, you know, this is a problem that can be solved. And you can do that here at the Institute of Cervantes. You are very, very privileged. You are very, very privileged to be able to speak one of the most important languages in the world, English. And it would be a very wise decision to learn the other one. So thank you for coming. And well, we have been thinking a lot about that. And I hope we will be able to continue this show in the future here at the Instituto of Cervantes. Thank you very much and enjoy the show.
Thank you, Ignacio. Thanks for bringing us all together. So, as a Moth tradition, one of the things that we always do at the Moth is whenever a storyteller is telling their story, and we love to tell stories, often we talk. We talk a lot. And each story that you'll be hearing tonight from our 7 storytellers will be 7 minutes. Sometimes our storytellers like to go a little long. So what we do is we have our wonderful musician over here who will be helping us out. Now, if the story reaches the 7-minute mark and they haven't quite finished their story, they'll get a little nudging, which will sound like this. Wow. That's a nice nudge, isn't it? It's a little lullaby of a nudge. Yeah. There's others coming. There's more where that came from. Now, if that little nudge doesn't quite work, then we might need to give them a little bit more of a menacing threat. And that threat will sound something like this. Ooh! Andale! Yes. Sounds good? Yeah, so that is what will be happening if our storytellers, which sometimes, you know, they just tend to ramble just a little bit much. Hopefully that won't be happening tonight, but just in case it does, that will be the cue. So I'm sure some of you are wondering how I ended up here, you know, black chick, speaking Spanish. A little bit of my own story, I mentioned this last week when we had this first kickoff, was I didn't really know what I was doing in college. I was trying to figure myself out, and by chance, I ended up going to Mexico City for a study abroad program. And I was living in Mexico City, and I was really trying to fit in, but mind you, I knew very, very little Spanish. I thought I knew more. I lived in San Jose, California. I went to a school called Los Paseos, literally meaning the passages, and I had no idea of any of this until I was about 17 years old. And a good half of my friends were Mexicanos, because I lived around a lot of Mexicanos, Mexicans, for those of you, you know, Mexican people, yes. And I am Trinidadian. My family comes from Trinidad and Tobago, and so there was always an interest in people from different cultures and languages and then speaking. So I just wanted to get to Mexico, because I actually heard that there were black people in Mexico. I was like, oh, really? I want to go check this out. So I jumped on a plane, and it was crazy, because I got there, and here I was kind of standing out, really trying to fit in by, you know, trying to speak the language. But one of the most memorable instances of being in Mexico City was when I first got there, trying to just acclimate. And my name is Don Joel. But when I would get a phone call from my family, they would have to call down to the downstairs living room, and me and my roommate were living in the upstairs in this brick building. Interesting. Anyways, so they would have to call us whenever a phone call would come in. And my first week, my mother, my host mother, Maria, she called out to me. She said, "Tan! Tan! Telefono, Tan! Tan, telefono!" And I was like, "Oh, that's me! That's me! That's." I was like, so I run down the stairs, and I was like, "Oh, Maria, my name is Dawn. Dawn." She said, "Tan?" I said, no, it's Dawn. She said, "Dawn?" I said, no, okay, this isn't quite working. So I just changed my name to Aurora for the entire time that I was in Mexico. It just made so much more sense. So little by little, started acclimating. But like most of you like some of you, I didn't really understand much Spanish. And there was one day, my host brother, he was looking at me. He's like, Don, ¿por qué te ríes? And I was like, uh-huh. And then somebody turned to me and she's like, no, Don. He asked, why are you laughing? And I was like, oh, sorry. That's all I would do if I didn't understand something. I just kind of like nodded my head and smiled. But little by little, I started noticing that I actually had to start paying a little bit more attention to the words and stop feeling like I was such an outsider and feeling a little bit more internal. So little by little, I started getting more acclimated, started feeling a little bit more comfortable in my own skin, random black chick in Mexico City, and then finally got a chance to present and speak and be with the people and be with my people. And at the end of the camps, at the end of the 6 months, I was speaking in Spanish, and I was happy because I could do it. I could go back to San Jose and Los Angeles and talk to the Mexicanos and, you know, have my burritos and have a good old time. But I never thought I'd have to present again in Espanol until last week. Thanks, Larry, and thank you to the moth. So you guys ready to get some stories started? Yeah.